Welcome to the Story Learning Podcast, regular doses of language learning tips and motivation to help you become fluent in any language. With me, Olly Richards. For language programs, books, free resources, and much more, visit StoryLearning.com.
Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. And today we've got something really cool because I've got a special guest here with me from the Netherlands, and we're going to be talking about a really interesting question, which is whether you have to spend time abroad in order to reach a high level in a language. Cool. So I'm very pleased to welcome my good friend Jan van der from the Netherlands, who's here sat beside me right now. Hey, Jan.
Hi, Olly. Yeah, thanks for having me in your podcast. What an honor.
Yeah, the honor is all mine. And I thought we would record this conversation today because we were walking around. We went for a walk around London yesterday, and we got talking about all of our languages. I have learned 8 languages in the past. And Jan, how many do you speak?
Yeah, I would say you can also speak 8 quite comfortably.
But you studied more as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I studied more, but yeah, 8 I can have like spontaneous conversations in 8 languages, so I would say 8.
Yeah, and so amongst we speak a number of languages each, but obviously like each of those languages has a slightly different level. Yeah. Some of them we are like very comfortable in, others not so much, right?
What are your best languages, Olly?
So for me, I mean, the languages that I'm most comfortable in, that I can kind of operate fairly freely without really thinking about it, would be Spanish, Portuguese, French, and Japanese. Mm-hmm. Those are the languages that I kind of feel most comfortable with.
And why do you think those are the languages that speak the best? Is that because you lived in all those countries where those languages were spoken?
Because this is the question, isn't it? Because so in my own life, I've travelled quite a lot. I've been very lucky, and I've travelled a lot, and so I've had the experience of actually using these languages in the countries, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of difficult for me to say what would happen if I didn't travel and if I didn't go abroad, whether I'd still be able to learn those languages to the same level.
Exactly.
But like, I mean, so to give you some examples, so when I learned Spanish and Portuguese, I was living in London, and everything I learned in those languages was in London, and I got to quite a good level.
Mm-hmm. What level? Until what level did you learn the language back at the time? Portuguese and Spanish.
It's difficult to say exactly what level, but I mean,
You were comfortable.
I'd spend entire days just speaking Spanish and Portuguese. So very very conversationally comfortable. But then I started traveling to Spain and I started traveling to Brazil. So I obviously improved in that time, and I don't know whether if I just stayed in the UK whether I would have kept improving or not. But I mean, the reason that, and again, this is what we were talking about yesterday. I should tell you guys, it's quite funny. We were walking through Greenwich Park, which is a beautiful park in southeast London, and we were on top of this, right up at the top of Greenwich Park, and there were a couple of Chinese girls taking these funny selfies on top of the park with this great view of London, and one of them asked Jan to take a photo for them, like not knowing that he speaks very good Mandarin, and so Jan kind of switches immediately into Mandarin and just starts talking to them in Chinese, and they're like, "Oh my god, how is this possible? How come you speak Chinese?" And they just kind of went, I didn't understand anything, but they went off and had this conversation, and so that got me thinking. Well, because I'm learning Cantonese at the moment still, and it's going well, but I've kind of had this lingering feeling that I don't know at the moment whether I'm going to be able to get it to a very good level where it's like very comfortable if I just stay here in London. Yeah. And so that's how I started. That's kind of why we got talking about this topic, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think does it make that brings you to a higher level when you stay in the country? Is it just that you have to, because now you're learning Cantonese, you only speak it with teachers on Itokai, as I understand.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
You think that it's that you just only use it in the classes, and then once when you have to speak it with someone in person, that it feels differently or something, and then you just can't respond naturally, or what is it that holds you back?
Yeah, it's it's the fact that it's not automatic for me, like, so when I think about this question, for me, like, I want to be able, my real goal, what I want to get to in a language is I want to be able to to meet someone spontaneously in the street or wherever, and then start a spontaneous conversation without feeling held back or without feeling, very easily.
Yeah.
And to connect with the person, so that like the conversation with the person is the most important thing, not whether I'm good at the language or not. And like for me, one of the most important things to get right in a language at the beginning is like, it's those first few moments when you meet someone. It's like,
exactly.
What do you say when you first interact with someone?
Because I think if you are capable of feeling comfortable replying in that target language spontaneously, then you can just keep using that language, and that allows you to keep improving in a very natural way. For example, I have this problem with Spanish. I've never lived in a country where they speak Spanish, and yesterday, for example, we were in London, and we met a few Spanish speakers, and
at the Polyglot Pub, by the way, for any of you guys in the UK, come along to Polyglot Pub.
Almost forgot to mention that, at the Polyglot Pub. I had to speak Spanish, but I've never lived in a country, so for some reason it never became a natural part of me, and I had this feeling where you just tend to reply in English, where you switch back to English, which is a pity, because if you end up speaking English, you're not going to practice the language. Do you have the same feeling for Cantonese? Or?
No, yeah, exactly. It's like there are certain things that you're very good at discussing, but I think there's kind of a threshold where the point at which if you have to use too much brain power, then it stops being natural, right? I mean, when I think about, so Spanish for me is one of my stronger languages, and for me, like, if I meet someone, I know how to start talking to them in a very natural way. If I don't understand what they say, I know it's not because my Spanish is bad. It's just like there's just some miscommunication, so I can very easily navigate that. Like nothing phases me in Spanish. Like, no, it's like it's zero.
Stay relaxed.
It's zero stress. Just like I can focus on what I want to talk about and focus on that conversation. Right? But it's absolutely not like that with Cantonese.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think we have to do in order to get to that level where we can just be relaxed? What do we need? Is it that we need to speak the languages with more people, with more different people than only with the teacher, as we do now? Or what is it? What is it?
What do you think? Because I don't know. I mean, like, part of me thinks the difficulty is the big question is, how do you get a language to become automatic, right? Automatic and natural. And like, it's so important to use services like italki or to talk with native speakers to build up your confidence in the first place, but then to really push it to the high levels. I think, based on my experience living abroad, I think that you have to go through a period of time when you come across 10, 20, 30 people every day, and you're forced to interact with them.
And maybe also that you're not only talking to a teacher, like who you explain what you did today or what your plans are, but maybe you need a bigger variety of topics to talk about. For example, please, Olly, pass me the coffee, please. That's not something that you're gonna ask your teacher on italki. Like, all those little things, I think, are the things that make the language more natural. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's not so much of what it means to speak a language well is not about. It's not the words and the grammar and all that stuff. It's not. It's about how you. Like, the big test for me is, how do you make the other person feel when you're speaking their language? Because I remember living in Japan, which is a place where people don't really speak very good English. And almost always, when I'd have a conversation in English with a Japanese person, it was difficult for me. Because their English was not good, and it was just a difficult conversation. And so I'm always very conscious, when I'm speaking another language, how does the other person feel talking to me? And so I know, like in Spanish, for example, that person is, the people I talk to are generally very, very comfortable. But then I know when I'm speaking Cantonese, the other person, like, they're aware, they know that I don't really get everything they're talking about.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. And why could that be? Is it because you cannot think in Cantonese? Is it maybe that you're just translating your ideas? Because I see you speaking Spanish very naturally. I don't see you thinking about how do you say that in Spanish. You're just it's very natural. It comes from your heart, not for your brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that's the thing. I do.
Right, so we need to. So that's an interesting point. So moving the language from your head to your heart. That's a nice way of looking at it. Because like with Cantonese for me now, it's still totally in my head. Like I have to think a lot.
Yeah. The same with if I speak Spanish, I'm just translating. I'm just thinking in Portuguese and I'm translating it into Spanish. And that's why. I know that a native speaker is gonna feel that I don't speak the language naturally, and that holds me back a little bit, and therefore I tend to switch to English, which is a pity because I'm not gonna practice my Spanish.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's a barrier that's important to.
So what are we saying? I mean, do we agree that actually to get your language to a very high level, you do have to spend time in the country? Because that's not what you said yesterday. You didn't agree with that yesterday.
Yeah, actually, I think you can. As you just told me that you spoke Spanish and Portuguese at a very high level even before you went to Brazil, but it's only that being part of the country, being among these people who speak the language all the time, that allow you to speak the language with your heart, as we just said.
Yeah,
maybe it's that thing. Because if you have people around you speaking this language all the time, and you have to reply all the time in this language, you don't have the time to think. You just, I don't know. It just somehow it becomes natural, and therefore, in order to make the language natural, I think it's really important to go to the ground. Another very important thing, I speak Chinese I'm very comfortable in Chinese. That would never have been possible if I did not go to China. I would not have had the motivation to learn the language. I think that's another very important thing. If you're in Hong Kong, and you spend a lot of time with people that speak Cantonese, you must be way more motivated to learn the language than staying here in London, even going downtown, going to a Chinese restaurant once a day.
I don't know about that. I mean, I'm maybe I'm not normal. I don't know, but I'm pretty motivated to study. I mean, I study every day. I speak Cantonese most days,
Yeah.
But I don't see it as a motivation problem. I see it as like a pain. When you're in the gym or you're running or something, and you have this, it's really, really hard, and you're really struggling. But then you just push through this barrier, and suddenly it's not so hard anymore, and it becomes easier. For me, it's a bit like that. Like, I still remember very clearly being in the Canary Islands many years ago, like speaking with a group of like 15 friends from there, and they were and these are all like childhood friends, so they're speaking Spanish very fast, like machine gun Spanish.
Yeah,
like they've got all their in jokes, but that only they know about all this slang, and it was really hard for me to keep up. And I remember like I tried for a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours to keep up, and I did, but like. You know what Spain is like. You stay there all night, right?
Yeah.
So we were there like until 4 or 5 in the morning. And it got to a point around 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, where my head was just hurting so much. I couldn't, not from the rum and coke, but from the Spanish. Like it was, I just couldn't do it anymore. But I had to keep going because I couldn't just sit there in silence.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. Yeah. So, and it's those moments that really help you embody the language, I think. And so that's why I'm kind of thinking, well, as much as I practice Cantonese here in London, like, am I really going to be able to smash through that pain barrier without spending the time in Hong Kong?
So you're saying that you just need to force yourself a little bit more to speak Cantonese, and a way to do that is by going to the country.
Yeah, well, that's it. Maybe it's one way of many.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do I don't know. I'm sure there are many ways of doing it. But well, this has been a really interesting conversation, man. Thanks very much. I hope this has been cool for you guys listening at home as well. It's a very interesting topic, and I know that lots of people do use this excuse. Well, not an excuse, but they do always think to themselves, if only I could live abroad, I would speak my language so well. And so I don't know. We don't have any answers, but at least we've kind of hopefully talked a little bit about the issue based on the experiences that we've had. So Jan, thank you very much for coming on. I'll ask you a bit more about you in just a second, but thank you for listening. If you would like to ask me a question about languages, then you can. Please go over to iwillteachyoualanguage.com/ask, and you can leave me a voicemail question that I'd be really happy to reply to. Also, if you've been enjoying the show, I'd really appreciate a review of the podcast on iTunes. It helps other people find the show as well, and it also helps keep me motivated to keep making these shows twice a week. So if you'd like to leave a review for me on iTunes, you can go to iwillteachyoualanguage.com/review, and that will take you to the place. Now, at the end of every episode, I like to leave you with a resource of some kind on the topic of the show. So, Jan, why don't I turn it over to you? I usually turn this part over to the guests. So, you do a lot of cool stuff, and I've ever since I started doing stuff online, I've seen things that you've been doing. I mean, you've made some fantastic videos with various polyglots. In fact, Jan came to Cairo and filmed a video with me as well. And we'll put this in the show notes, which will be at iwillteachyoualanguage.com/episode 80. Jan came and he filmed this kind of entire mini documentary about me in Egypt, which was super cool. And he's produced a fantastic video, which you can check out there. So I kind of know you from that, but I know you're working on other things at the moment. So where can people, what are you up to, and where can people find you?
So a little bit more about myself. So in the last 5 years, actually, 5 years ago, I started my own business, also running my own business online, which allowed me to travel, to move to a lot of different countries, learn a local language in the country. I've written a lot about language learning, about traveling. You can find it on my website, which is www.janvandera.com. That's my name.
And if you can't spell that, don't worry. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well, which will be at iwillteachyoualanguage.com/episode 80. Cool. Thanks very much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming on the show, Jan, and I'll see you in the next episode of the podcast.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. And here at Story Learning, everything that I do is powered by stories, whether that's writing books, teaching lessons, crafting courses. My mission is to help everyone succeed at learning a new language through the power of story. And we now have comprehensive language courses in over 15 languages, from Spanish to French, Korean to Japanese, and across all levels from beginner to mastery. And you can take a 7-day free trial of any of these programs by visiting storylearning.com/courses. I've poured my heart and soul into creating these courses over the last 10 or so years, and we've helped tens of thousands of new students achieve their dreams of learning a new language, all through the power of story. So go ahead and take a free trial. There's no commitment. You can try out our method for free, see if this can also be the breakthrough for you that it's been for so many other people. storylearning.com/courses.